Hey everybody, another ClevelandMoto video. This is a bike we've taken in on trade. This is a Moto Guzzi V7 Mk2. The Mk2 means that it has ABS, it has traction control, and it also has a 6th speed in the transmission. The Mark I, the prior edition, was a 5-speed motorcycle. It did not have ABS and it did not have traction control. This bike has been tastefully equipped with a set of the Agostini reverse cone megaphone slip-on silencers from Agostini in Mandela Delorio. Really cool. I've been to the shop. The people there are super nice, and they live and breathe Moto Guzzi. So they are the guys to talk to if you want to have a fantastic sounding exhaust system for your Moto Guzzi motorcycle. This bike's really got low miles. It hasn't been ridden a heck of a lot. Still wears its original factory Pirelli Sport Demon tires. And is in great shape. We're going to take it for a spin today and kind of show you some of the things about the Moto Guzzi V7 that make it special and, truth be told, make it one of my favorite standard motorcycles. 1,644 miles. First off, the tone from the Agostini pipes is fantastic. I absolutely love the way this bike sounds. I find that the tone is very deep. It hits you right in the chest. It is an excellent sounding exhaust system. Now, first things first, when you get on the bike, you're going to notice that the ABS light is flashing and the traction control light is flashing. Both of those are going to stay on until you get yourself up to a few miles per hour. You're also going to see it has an ambient temperature gauge. It's 85 degrees right now. I like having ambient temperature gauges on bikes, and this bike's gone a whopping 1,644 miles. Nice Mustang sitting there. Very cool. Alright. So here we are on the road. The first thing anybody notices about the V7s is these are lightweight bikes. Right around 400 pounds on the money. And a very large 6-gallon gas tank. So, give or take 5.8, 6 gallons. That is a hell of a big gas tank for a standard-sized motorcycle. You can get a real long range out of these bikes. This is a 6-speed, so you guys can see what's going on. We're doing 50 miles an hour. We're turning 3,100 RPM. And you'll see in a minute when we get up on the freeway here what that translates to at freeway speeds. This bike can carry over 80 miles per hour at 5,000 RPM, which is a very happy balance. This bike has Brembos front and rear. And it really does like riding around the neighborhood, riding an in-town environment. Absolutely loves it. The lightweight, the fact you can change direction super easily on this bike, I really do enjoy it. Now the rear suspension is preload adjustable. It's got the collars, the threads, so it's you can fine-tune the rear preload as much as you want. The front is non-adjustable. However, obviously if you change the weight of the fork oil, you can change the behavior of the front fork. The interesting thing is, when these bikes came out, Mark 1s even, there are two different companies that manufacture the forks for the front end. And what was really funny is, on the forums, the V7 owners were complaining about the ride. And I get a kick out of this because we had people complaining the ride was too soft, and we had people complaining the ride was too harsh. And yet they're complaining about the exact same bikes. We had thought that maybe there was a change. We thought that maybe due to some of the bikes having one brand of fork and the other bikes having a different brand of fork, maybe there were in fact soft forks and hard forks. But what we realized pretty quickly was that people were in fact complaining about hardness and softness about the exact same fork. If you look on the inside of the fork leg, you can see a manufacturing mark that'll indicate who made your fork. But it turns out it wasn't that particular. The bias wasn't towards the manufacturer of the fork. The bias was just inconsistencies among human beings themselves. Some people, the Goldilocks syndrome. This bike's, as far as the rideability goes, it's really easy to find neutral on it. When I run these, I either run them on 87 octane or 89 octane. They seem to be real happy with it. Again, the sound is very rewarding. Not too loud, not the point where I'm angry at it or it's irritating me. It just has a deep tone. And for me, the deep tone is far more interesting than the decibels. I would much rather have a deep tone than a loud noise. Switch gear's all normal. It does have the European style flash to pass, so you press the button and it goes momentarily to the high beams. Okay. Everything up here is standard, what you'd expect it to be. When you press the button on the right, it will cycle between the ambient temperature, which now is 78 degrees, because we've driven a little bit away from the lake. In Cleveland, the lake keeps us warmer. So it's like a giant heat sink. So in the wintertime, it hangs on to the cold, and your spring months, it'll be cooler by the lake. And then in the summertime, it hangs on to the heat, and when it gets to be like 65 inland, it'll still be 75 by the lake. Sometimes it'll be a 10 degree temperature difference. So press the button once, you're in your regular clock, and press it again, you're in your temperature. And it has trip meters on the left, so you can see your trip meter and your total miles. Super simple, nothing that should surprise anyone. A little bit of traffic today. It's fine Saturday morning. What do we hear there? That was a test. We popped the bike over those railroad tracks, and I was giving it the beans as I did it, and we heard it break up. Now, the breaking up wasn't due to any fuel injection issues. It was due to the back tire losing traction. When the back tire lost traction, the traction control got involved and said, we're not going to give you any more spark, which, of course, interrupts the motor. So that is something. And you can turn the traction control off. There is a series of button presses that will get you through that you can shut off the traction control. However, that is one of those things that with modern motorcycles, in a momentary loss of traction, you will get a momentary loss of power. It also doesn't like doing wheelies. As soon as the front wheel comes off the ground and it can detect the speed variation between the front and rear tire, it will retard your power as well. It brings that front wheel right back down again. It's really embarrassing, too, because if you get yourself set up for a nice wheelie, you're going to pull away from the light with a certain degree of authority. You're going to have the front wheel in the air, and next thing that happens is, boom, loss of power. Well, as we all know, when we get our bodies all set up ergonomically for a wheelie, well, we're kind of preloading our body like a spring. We're waiting for the wheelie to happen so we can deal with it. Well, if you suddenly lose power and the front end goes down again, all these tense muscles tend to push us straight over the headlight. My head ends up, because I'm pulling those bars, and what I end up doing is I end up pulling my torso and my skull over the headlight. It's always embarrassing when you're trying to do a wheelie on a bike with traction control. There's no such thing as a smart traction control system yet that will allow when the conditions are right that I'm doing a wheelie, the traction control backs out for a second to let me have it. Because, hey, wheelies are fun. And as usual, we'll jump on the freeway here, give you guys a little taste of what it feels like at the higher speeds. That's the after rumble. Of course, the popping on D-cell, you're going to have that with any time you remove a OEM exhaust system. This bike has had the pipes put on and the ECU mapped by Rexer or Redline, depending on where you're from. We've been using Rexer for our ECU remaps for the Moto Guzzis. They seem to do an excellent job, and the bikes are always very happy. Nice little surge of power there. Fourth gear, fifth gear, and then sixth gear. And through we're in six. Yeah, 100 miles per hour comes on at about 5,800 RPM. And now you can see we're moving along with the flow of traffic this morning. About 5,200 RPM at about 86, 88 miles per hour. So it's not a particularly buzzy bike. This is a nice V-twin, sideways, 90 degree with shaft drive, so it is dead smooth. I mean, this thing feels great. And to help the camera angle, I'm sitting perfectly upright. Normally I'd be a little bit lower, but you couldn't get more comfortable. We happen to luck into a person who's got dealer plates on the back of his GMC. And he's moving along pretty good this morning. This is a spirited test. little roadkill for you. Man, this bike has no problem doing 100. It could go faster. I just don't feel like getting into a tuck this morning. And just an absolute standard motorcycle. I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 200 pounds. This thing feels fine. Very good cut. Ergonomics are fantastic. My feet are very happy where they are. My handlebars are about in the perfect position. What's not to love? I mean, you've got a happy motor. You got a lightweight motorcycle. Really good suspension. It really does feel great. And if this doesn't turn you on, if this doesn't make you happy, I like to remind you that the geometry and the weight of this motorcycle is all very similar to an old Honda 70s CB450. In fact, it's one of those bikes that, you know, you sit on it and it just feels like, well, this is what motorcycles are supposed to feel like. Drop a gear, get out of the overdrive, get into 5th gear, up to 100 miles an hour again very quickly. Get up to about 105. There we go. Take 6th gear again. Well, you don't want to be one of those guys, but, you know, it's for science. So, yeah, this is a fun bike. Being in the dealership, we hear a lot from different consumers, a lot from different customers. Oh, well, I'm going to go for the Bonneville because, oh, that Moto Guzzi's got no guts. Man, I'm sorry, dude, I disagree with you. I think the Moto Guzzi's got plenty of guts. And the fact that it's damn near 100 pounds lighter than the Bonneville, and just feels like it wants to play. I got to say, I classify the Bonneville as a much heavier bike, and it is a bigger bike. The reach from the seat to the bars is longer. If you're a person who's under 5'10", the Guzzi's going to feel fantastic for you. The Bonneville, not so much. And the Bonneville's a great motorcycle. I'm not saying it's not. But I gotta just comment that this thing feels wonderful underneath me. It really does have that, like, I can do anything feeling. And I think that's what you want when you're talking about a standard motorcycle. There's no reason why you can't put a tank bag on this thing and put a set of sandbags on it and ride it as far as you want to go. I mean, just now we were at 105 and the bike was happy with it. So I don't see a problem with this machine. This is a bike that I think really does give the owner the vintage motorcycle owning experience without any of the hassles. Now, keep in mind, remember the Mark 1 had no traction control, it had no ABS. So if you're the type of guy that doesn't like traction control or ABS on a motorcycle, go with the Mark 1. Those were made up until 2014. This one's a 2015. It's the Mark II, and it's got the traction control and the ABS and the 6th speed. Now, we did a shootout between the Mark I and Mark II, and what we discovered was the tack at 65 miles per hour was only about 100 RPM difference between top gear in the Mark I and top gear in the Mark II, meaning that 6th gear, that overdrive, if you will, that they put into the Mark II, it really didn't save you a lot of RPMs at the top, at 65 miles per hour. So if you're buying it because you're like, oh, I'm going to save a lot of gas, my RPMs are going to be a lot lower because of that 6th gear, no, they're not. They're very similar. It's just that the spacing of the gears in the Mark II and Mark III, they're a little tighter. And so I really do. I like the Mark I because I like the no traction control. I like the no ABS in a lightweight motorcycle. I I like lightweight motorcycles to be completely analog if possible. So I like a little bit of wheel slip here and there. I like the front end coming up, and I don't like anybody getting involved with the experience I'm having on a lightweight bike. Now, that's me. When you get in the Mark II, now the Mark III is the last one to come out, and the Mark III, now the Mark II had the shortest run. I swear to God, the Mark II only existed for, a couple of months. With the Mark III, they changed a few things. They moved the motor around in the frame. They made some modifications to the bike that were beyond just the 6th speed in the transmission and the ABS and the traction control. So there are definitely some pronounced differences between the Mark III and Mark II. Now, what we discovered is most of the accessories and all the stuff that they built for the Mark I, because they built the Mark I for a long time, all those accessories do tend to work on a Mark II, but there are quite a few variances between the Mark II and Mark III when it comes to fitment of accessories and things like that. Very similar riding experience. It's just that there are quite a few changes on the Mark III. It's almost like the Mark II was like a Mark 1.5. It was a Mark I with the addition of ABS traction control in the 6th gear. So I hope that I've given you guys a lot of information about the Moto Guzzi V7, in this case, the V7 Mark II. This is a bike that we absolutely love, and there is a way that you can tell when you're dealing with me in particular. If I really like a bike, when it's late, 11:30 midnight at the shop, and I got to pick something to ride home, you've just been on my commute. So when I choose a bike to be my late-at-night ride-home bike, that's a bike that I really, really enjoy. And keep in mind that back in 2011, we liked the experience of riding a V7 enough, and we liked the Moto Guzzi Grezzo enough, that we signed up to be a dealer with the company. So it's going to take a lot of passion on my part to be willing to write the massive check required to get a particular brand of bikes in my shop. Yeah, this is a fun bike. I do enjoy it. So here we are. We're arriving at Cleveland Moto. You guys can remember to hit the subscribe button. There's a little bell over there if you want to know when we post new videos, as we tend to do from time to time. We'll do a hop-off real quick and give you another view of this delightful motorcycle. Big fun. I mean, really, here we are with our Moto Guzzi V7 Mark II in titanium gray. The ever so attractive bluing on the headers. Those are single wall headers, so they are going to blue. If they're not bluing, you've got a problem. That's science. 500 and some odd degrees, that chrome will change color. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, comment in the bottom. We do respond to all of our comments. And remember, folks, ride fast and take chances.